Welcome to the I Love Buffalo podcast. Part of the I Love Buffalo network with your host, Josh Catry.
Welcome, good neighbors, to the I Love Buffalo podcast. I'm your host, Josh Catry. Thanks so much for tuning in. Today on the podcast, violence on the waterfront is quickly dismantled by police. Cruise ships are a lot closer to docking. Sabres making some moves. Frank Lloyd Wright spotlight and road trip. In this new segment, we explore things to do within a one-day road trip from Buffalo, New York. All this and more on this episode of the I Love Buffalo podcast.
I said, let's hit a repeat. She said, I'm eating good and you won't recognize the new me. We went from watching Goonies, now it's only bad and bougie. I recognize a fluke, you cannot fool me with that booty miss. I'm truly bliss about the opportunities we didn't miss. Reminisce about the times we never could afford to miss. Now we on imported ships, that's why you feel a little distance. Lately I've been playing like Isaiah Thomas with the Pistons. I just hit a hat trick, man, don't ask me why we never kick it. Back on the block, spitting that hot.
That right there was the very talented Pro Social, spelled P-R, the number 0, and then social. He's great live, too. I've seen him live. He does a wide range from soul to funk to rap. Seems like he's doing a lot more rap lately. I saw him at Music is Art, and I have this weird dream to someday see him on stage with Roy G. Biv doing a mashup. You will hear Pro Social throughout this episode in between segments. Be sure to give him a like and follow on Spotify and social media and all that. I'll try to leave some links in the show notes. And now on to our first segment. Violence on the water. Buffalo's waterfront was hit with two major violent incidents this past Monday evening and Sunday, raising some concerns about the safety down there. This was unusual. Like, I spend a lot of time downtown. I don't see a lot of violence, and luckily no one was killed. The first violence was at Canal Side, and that was around 8 o'clock. There was a large crowd enjoying, the typical evening, and there was a shooting. And a 23-year-old man was shot multiple times, and a 19-year-old man was also hit. And both were rushed to ECMC and thankfully survived and will recover. Now, police called this like a targeted attack. So this was not like some random thing. I know some people try to get a little worried about coming downtown and things like this. It's really rare to see some absolutely random act. This was a targeted act, and that is a little bit of relief. The other relief is how quickly the police responded. They did a great job. They were there within seconds. Police took this super seriously. They got DNA, they got tons of evidence, and they made a quick arrest, and they arrested a 17-year-old male from Buffalo, executed a search warrant, and in response, the security around Canal Side has been ramped up. More officers on patrol, but honestly, I see officers so often down there. They did a really good job just stopping this and solving it. Oddly, right around the same time, there was trouble brewing at Woodlawn Beach State Park, where about 1,500 people gathered for an unauthorized party on the beach with like alcohol flowing, and just being such a large group, they were just ignoring the police. And some fights broke out on the beach, and law enforcement had to shut it down around 8:40. The day before, also on Woodlawn Beach, there was an alleged stabbing by an 18-year-old who was arrested for assault and menacing after attacking his ex-girlfriend with a knife. And authorities have made it clear that these two Monday evening incidents and the one the day before are not related. They were not connected in any way, despite happening the same night. It was just, summertime, hot weather, large groups of youth gathering, jealousy, rage, this kind of thing, and it turned into violence. A lot of this is caused by alcohol-fueled rage. A lot of it's caused by putting yourself in bad circumstances. That's for sure. If I'm ever around a circumstance that I don't want to be around, where I feel like violence can arise, and when these can happen, you can feel it sometimes when there's just too much rowdiness happening. I was involved in a lot of situations like this when I was younger, and you can tell when these kind of things are arising, and it's just wiser not to be part of these kinds of situations. Don't put yourself in a place where violence is much more likely. If you feel violence arising around you, you could feel tensions rise, just leave. right? There's nothing to gain by being violent. I always say this on the show when there's violence in Buffalo, but if you're the kind of person that is finding yourself in situations like this, go train martial arts. Don't risk hurting yourself or someone else, especially if that person doesn't want to also be hurt. Test yourself for real. Get in a cage, Go test yourself for real if you want to be violent. It's okay. Being able to fight and being able to be a warrior and being able to resist against evil and being able to stand up for yourself, these are all traits that were required for humans to evolve. We had to be able to stand up for ourselves. And so it's not like a bad trait necessarily to want to fight, but do it in a better environment that helps you grow. It isn't so risky. Go learn how to fight for real. Don't harm innocent people. Get in a cage and test yourself and grow. Go learn a skill. Go learn how to harness that bad energy, the negative energy, into something positive, right? Your anger is under your control, and it's your responsibility to control it. I'm sure a lot of people had a lot of bad things happen to them that warrant rage, that warrant the feeling of wanting to do violence. But learning how to control that is good for you and everyone else. You have to think about the outcome you want. I think police did a very good job here, and so did the entire city. Again, they arrived within seconds. Acting Mayor Scanlon, I thought, did a good job. He jumped right on it. He faced it. He emphasized the city's ongoing commitment to public safety. He said Canalside is actually the most heavily patrolled area of B District, and by extension, possibly the entire city. So we have tremendous partners down there and police force down there. We're going to continue to do everything we can to make sure it's a safe location for people to come down. And I do believe I see police presence everywhere. I don't think just random people are in danger. And they're even discussing now putting a substation down there, a little police station, which probably is a good idea. This is a high traffic area where just, everyone wants to go. Your mom and dad and grandparents want to go. Let's have a good system there to make sure that it's safe for everyone. Glad they got right on top of this because that's the heart of our city, the waterfront, and we need to protect it like it is. We need to understand that if the heart is doing well in our city, the rest of the city is doing well, and it can be. But if you're the kind of person that finds yourself getting angry or wanting to be violent and you still have control of that, consider finding a martial arts school, channeling it into something positive for you and everyone around you. Because you don't want to end up just in jail over one angry decision you made one night over a lover or over some dispute that's really not going to mean anything in the long run. We can make better choices, helping each other do it together. Find a jiu-jitsu school.
Just know this the last time I sing a note before you pay me. This the last time I let you pay me. Just know that everything gonna always come back around before you ever try to shake me. This the last time. Remember last time I told you never push me. I read the playbook, but you still paint me as a rookie, and you tried to overlook me. And if shit died down, I wonder what this really could be. We don't kick shit like Bruce Lee. Betting on my T1, I open, I'm cautious. Betting on myself made me ill, I'm so nauseous. Joking on my hype, but I block when you ran up. When I'm on the mic, I'm that boy, but I'm man up.
In our next segment, a quick update on the previous story we covered earlier, maybe 10 episodes ago, about possible cruise ships coming to Lake Erie here. There has been a development. The ECHTC recently greenlit $1.6 million design contract to make the cruise ship a possibility. They're going to look into how feasible it is, where they would put it, how it would connect to the city, how it would affect the environment, all these different kinds of studies. They want to develop detailed plans for the cruise ship dock, like where the dock's going to be, where the passenger terminals are going to be, gangways, essential docking facilities, all of this. I'm for this. I know I'm an environmentalist. I prefer to have really good habitat in that harbor, but I'm also for the city of Buffalo to bring income from outside of our area into our city. And the way to do that is tourism. We have some awesome summers here. We have the best summers maybe in the world in Buffalo, New York. You can make fun of our winters, but you can't make fun of our summers. Never reached 100 degrees like we talked about last time. Lush forests and just cool weather where in the same day you get a beautiful sunny day and you get to see a thunderstorm rolling up the lake and then go back to sunny again. I think that's cool. I like it. I love the variety of seasons here. And we have the summer times are arguably the best. And we have a lot of cool, interesting stuff to show in Buffalo. I mean, this podcast alone, 20 episodes, 90, 100, 200 different things we're already covering. And there's so many things I didn't even start to cover yet about Buffalo. There's a lot of story to be told here, a lot of interesting things. We should be inviting people from Pittsburgh and from Cleveland and Toronto. And if they can take a cruise ship here, well, that's a pretty cool idea. I think we should offset it, if we do, with some kind of environmental boosts. And I think the harbor has got some environmental boosts left in it, a bunch that they can do. They can turn things into nature preserves. For example, in front of Bethlehem Steel there's a big mud flat that attracts birds and no one's allowed to go there. We'll turn it into a park. Let us go there. Add some more habitat to it. It's like a dump. It's like a waste. It's like a toxic dump. Basically the same thing they had at Times Beach, but they opened that up to the public. So open up more harbor, plant some more stuff, clean up the site, make it more impervious to the toxic chemicals that are there. They did this at Times Beach. They cleaned it out. They made it better. They improved it. Be wise with the kind of plants we use and sand and habitat, but also let's make a cool cruise ship spot here. Let's bring people to Buffalo and let's make the whole downtown vibrant and safe. It doesn't have to be either or, left or right, up or down, label or your label or my label. It can be some kind of fusion. It should be, probably. Because the people that want economic growth in Buffalo are right, and the people that want to protect the environment are also right. So where does that meet? Well, there's a lot of rational, interesting places that they meet. We can use the money that we make from tourism to make the environment better too. This is all possible. It's especially possible if we get corrupt systems out of the way, which we can. But it all starts with recognizing that some kind of economic income coming into this harbor is good for Buffalo. And now let's also shore up the spots where there's good environmental stuff too. Let's make good habitat, good spawning habitat. And they're doing a lot. They've added a bunch of spawning habitat for muskies. The population seems to be doing pretty well right now. So I respect all the changes that are happening on both sides. And I really hope that they find good ways to mediate and work in the middle and make us grow on every single level possible.
All they want is that shock value. They ain't ready for the real static. Then you said that it's been packed. I ain't tripping with the bills at.
All right. In this next segment, we're going to cover what the Sabres did this week. They were moving and shaking. They had a bunch of stuff go on. First of all, there was the draft. We also had a huge trade. We traded J.J. Peterka to Utah, and Alexander McGillney finally made it into the Hall of Fame. So let's start with the trade first, because this happened overnight and it was kind of shocking news. Not that shocking, actually. We all kind of knew that J.J. Peterka was being shopped around. It was the last year of his contract. It sounded like he didn't want to sign or didn't want to sign for whatever they were offering him. And so it's smarter to trade him if he doesn't want to sign. It's sad that he didn't want to sign, but it's also understandable when you haven't made the playoffs in 14 years. So I personally am okay with this trade. I'm a big critic of Kevin Adams. I thought he should have been fired about 2 years ago before they hired Lindy Ruff. But since they hired Lindy Ruff, I think that at this point, I wouldn't fire him either because he has made a change in philosophy. And if I was in his shoes, I would have made the same change in philosophy. And that philosophy seems to be he's looking for players that are better two-way players, better on offense and defense and have grit and are willing to stand up for each other and are willing to go into the corners and are willing to fight and battle for each other. And if I was coaching a team, that's the kind of team I'd want to coach. One that worked hard on both sides of the ice. That would be the philosophy. So the fact that he's going out and getting players like this and moving on from players that are not known for this, I think is a change in his philosophy. Peterka is a good player. He's a good winger. He had 27 goals last year and 68 points. That's really good. And we gave him away, but there's a number that I really like in hockey, and it's called the Corsi relative percentage number. And if I was personally looking for players, I would be trying to find players that had a high positive percentage Corsi number, which basically means you're attacking the other net more than they're attacking your net. Shots is very specific. When you look at just shots, sometimes you have a really good shot, but it misses the net by a millimeter, but it was still an attack. So Corsi takes this into account, and it basically looks at how much better you make other people around you. So, for example, Reinhart had this stat where it was pretty high on the Sabres, and when we traded him, I was against that trade. But J.J. Peterka has a negative Corsi number, which means that everyone on the ice does more poorly with him on the ice. It wasn't a bad one. It wasn't huge, horrible, but it wasn't positive. And the players we're picking up have positive Corsi numbers. They play both ends of the ice. Yes, they can score. Do they score as much as JJ Peterka? No, but that is not the goal. The goal isn't just to score. The goal is to score more than your opponent scores on you. So both sides of the ice are important. So that number, I think, is very important. Attack more than you are attacked. In hockey, there's a little luck. I've never actually played the game on the ice, but there's a little luck, and it's pretty obvious. You're shooting a puck, and it's ricocheting off 4 people. Sometimes you get lucky. Sometimes when you have skill, you can capitalize on your opportunities, of course, way more than those that don't have the skill. But there's a little luck involved. In all sports, there's a little luck involved, right? But hockey is a little bit more with that ricocheting shot. That's such a small little puck flying through multiple people is more lucky to get that through. Or I'd say it's like easier to get a puck through a group of people than it is to get a soccer ball through a group of people or a running back through a wall of people. Like there is a bigger margin for error where you can just, hit the puck and there's a chance you're going to get into a little open space with that puck. So a little bit of luck is involved, but you look over these long iterations, many iterations, and these Corsi numbers, and I think that Kevyn Adams is rebuilding the team with people that have high Corsi numbers, and I think this aligns with Lindy Ruff's philosophy of grit. So this is Lindy Ruff's last year on his contract. I wouldn't give Kevyn Adams more than maybe half a year leash here. He has to the trade deadline to get this thing righted and look like we're going to the playoffs. And Lindy might be on the chopping block too. I personally would give him maybe a little more leeway, but if this whole thing fails again, I would probably be looking to start over, I think. I mean, it's 15 years then. But as of right now, to me, it's a change in philosophy. And as a coach, I respect that. I respect that at least the organization is trying something different. They're not doing the same exact thing that they've done. They went for only skill. Now they've kept some skill, and they've traded away some skill for some skill on both sides of the puck. They don't just look at skill as offense right now. Now they're looking at, I want to be hard to play against and have upside of scoring. And I think a Corsi number is really nice for that. I think in our last bunch of trades here, we have altered that number quite a bit to the positive side, which increases our likelihood of capitalizing on opportunities when we get it. So in exchange for JJ Peterka, we got Kesserling and we got Doan. And Kesserling is like a big defenseman. He's tough to play against. He does score. He can move the puck. He's got a super hard shot. The 2 hardest shots in the NHL are now both on the Sabres. That's Kesserling, Tage Thompson. Tage has the hardest shot by a couple miles per hour too, but I think it'll be a friendly rivalry, and I think that it can grow into something. Josh Doan is the son of Shane Doan, famous NHL player. We got him. His rookie year, he put up some decent points. It wasn't horrible. It was a rookie year. He's kind of reminds me, if you're kind of looking down the Sabres roster of someone that could have potential, he reminds me a little bit of Zach Benson, two-way potential, is a really big pest in the offensive zone end. I think Josh Doan is a nice piece, plays both sides of the puck. He's really a good forechecker, and he'll bother you, and he'll chase you around and get you to cough up pucks. And we need people like that on our team. We want to be hard to play against. So this, again, fits the new philosophy I think that the Sabres are choosing to go for. The NHL draft was this week, and they did it in a decentralized fashion, which means it was online mostly. Kind of weird. Don't know if I really liked it that much. The Sabres had the 9th overall pick. We stay with our pick, and we kind of kept with this idea of finding players that can play both offense and defensive well. And we took a big, giant defenseman. I think he's the biggest person in the first round, one of the biggest people in the draft. 6'6", 220 pounds about. His name is Radim Mrtka. There's no vowels, M-R-T-K. There's an A at the end. And he's a big right shot defenseman. He's young too. So he played really well for his team. He played for Seattle, and he's a year younger than everyone else. He won't make the team though, almost definitely. They'll be why defensemen take longer to develop, and usually they don't make the team right away. I mean, Dahlin was an exception. Power was an exception. But I think Mrtka will be served well to stay down in the minors for a year. But he's the kind of guy that will be a good stay-at-home defensive defenseman, still with great skating ability, great passing ability, playing for the other half of Owen Power or the other half of Dahlin. He's really good at following players when they enter the zone. He's got this big reach where he makes it seem like you don't have a lot of room to move because you don't. And he's very good at tracing the puck, tracing the person, and getting in between passing lanes and shooting lanes. So it should be good. It's with the philosophy that we're already looking at. It seems like that is a long-term investment. And hopefully if they turn it around, they can get to see their investment grow. And in our last part of the Sabres segment here, we're going to talk about Alexander McGillney getting into the Hall of Fame. This is like my childhood watching this guy. Just incredible. He was the first NHL player to defect from the Soviet Union to America to play for the NHL. He set the record for 76 goals in one season for the Buffalo Sabres. A lot of people think he should have been inducted to the Hall of Fame before this year. Some people think it's political because he's from Russia and all this, but Alexander McGillney didn't do anything to deserve that. In fact, he showed that he wanted out of that country and out of that bad system, came here and performed amazing. And it's just great to see that he's finally getting in. So congratulations to you, Alexander McGillney. Thank you for making my childhood exciting, going to see some of those games. I remember watching his very first game, and he scored 20 seconds into his first shift. And it was like, whoa. And it was like dazzling. So congratulations again. Thanks for the memories. And hopefully Buffalo hockey can return to that form where we're on the edge of our seats and we're going to the playoffs.
I remember feeling really low, and the mode losing my control. Mama said I never made a go. Mama said I would've never fold, so I never fold, so I never fold. I'm gonna burn my balls, watching the week. And I've been high too long, feel like a week sin. I'm gonna call my bros, you don't want beef, you don't want. We're moving up 3%, we're moving up, yeah. They wanna come.
All right. In our fourth segment here, I'm going to mix two different segments, number 4 and number 5. Usually in number 4 today, I'd be covering the Frank Lloyd Wright Spotlight. And for number 5, we're going to do a new kind of segment, and this is called Road Trip, where we're going to occasionally explore things to do within a one-day road trip from Buffalo. So basically, like if you can drive there in a day and do something, stay overnight, maybe 2 nights, something like that, and then drive back, we're going to look at little road trips like this that aren't too far away that we can get in our car and just do right here from Buffalo, New York. And so last week, my wife and I, we went to Falling Water in Pennsylvania. This is down near Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I had not been to the city proper of Pittsburgh in a long, long time. I didn't remember it at all. And even when I went there before, I just passed through mostly. And it was much different than I expected. But before we unwind the trip, the road trip, we'll do that at segment 5. Segment 4, let's just talk about Frank Lloyd Wright a little bit and his significance here in Buffalo and who he is and what he did. So he wasn't just one of America's greatest architects. I mean, he was, but he was like a character, a personality at the time. He reshaped the idea of what building could be. And he was known for many masterpieces, like Falling Water, the place we went to in Pennsylvania, is probably his most famous besides maybe the Guggenheim Museum. The Guggenheim is amazing too. But right here in Buffalo, there's a bunch of places that you can see that were created by his skills as an architect. The most famous one here is the Darwin D. Martin House over by the zoo there. And that is just an absolute beautiful masterpiece. Like in terms of his evolution as an architect, that is what many call like the cream of the crop, you know, in terms of architecture and inviting in outdoor space into the inside. Of course, Falling Water was actually on a mountain and they used rocks and stuff inside and a waterfall. But his evolution in the Darwin Martin House is profound for the space that it's in. He also pioneered this concept of organic architecture, using things that are already there in the structure that grow naturally from their surroundings. And his vision was very bold, you know. He liked open floor plans, natural light. If he used any kind of electric light, it was always facing away from people, like shooting up at the ceilings or diffused somehow. And when he had natural light windows, he never would block a window. We saw a really cool example at Falling Water where the person that owned the house wanted to put a desk in front of a window. Frank Lloyd Wright said, only if I can cut out the desk so it doesn't block the actual window. So there's like this half moon cutout in a desk and the window opens inside the desk. It's really neat. This was upstairs in Kaufman's master bedroom, I believe, one of the master bedrooms upstairs where this was all cut out. And the window would open and take away the corner. So normally you have a frame around a window. Well, they would have 2 windows meeting, but where they met, there would be no frame. And when you open the windows, it would be a cornerless room. This was another one of his innovations to design. Everything had to be just right in his eyes. He was a perfectionist, but this also led to him having kind of a bad reputation in some aspects. First of all, some people found him a little bit insufferable because he would be so much famously arrogant and self-promoting and often make people redo things over and over again to get him right, which, okay, that's kind of understandable, but you don't have to be a dick about it, right? So he kind of has this reputation. He routinely clashed with clients. Like, he refused to compromise if he had like a design and they wanted to change it, just like I gave the example of. He would also like sometimes do things that were really bad, like run off with a client's wife or do things like this, which was pretty scandalous in the early 1900s to just take your client's wife and run off with her. So while his pieces were beautiful and his visions were amazing, he had kind of a dark side. He also had financial problems. Besides just kind of being like a playboy, he'd also leave unpaid debts in his wake, half-finished projects. A lot of people saw him as egotistical, manipulative, even ruthless sometimes. You know, he'd be pursuing his artistic vision, but he wouldn't do it with too much grace or tact. But it's hard to deny his influence here on Buffalo. And if you like checking out architecture, like his spaces are just so deeply thought out. Like every little detail is thought out. Why this is here, why that is there, why are we using this color, why are we making a chair this way? He'd build furniture into the buildings often, and the furniture would lay out the room with the furniture. And so this was very rare to do, to build like a dining room area or a living room, how you're going to sit in the living room. He would design all of that, not always, but often in his designs. So if you want to check out some of his work here in Buffalo and you never did before, Darwin Martin House is a great place to start because there's like a visitor center and it will really give you a nice tour and an insight to his designs. That was built like early 1900s, 1903, 1905. So Darwin Martin owned the Larkin Company. He built this house for him, and he also built the building for the Larkin Company. But unfortunately, that was tore down. It was called the Larkin Soap Company, built in 1906, and it was such a cool looking building. But they demolished it in 1950, which is really sad. This is why I do support some of the historical preservation people when they step in. Of course, we've had some historical buildings at Pearl Street and Riverworks, and they have fought us on some changes that I think that we were justified in changing. So they can be a pain in the butt. But I think overall, the idea of trying to save buildings, or at least getting a hearing, what are you going to do? What are you going to do with this old building? It does have value because once it's gone forever. And now the Larkin Soap Company building can never be back here in Buffalo. It's gone. And it would be awesome if it was still here. Some of the other buildings that he designed in Buffalo and West New York were the Grey Cliff Estate. This is in Derby. It's on the cliffs. Super cool. Great place to take your mom for like Mother's Day. You can even look for fossils behind it and stuff like that. This was built in the 20s and 30s. So late 20s, early 30s. This was a summer retreat for the Martin family, and it's right above Lake Erie. It's not too far outside of Buffalo. He also did the Heath House. This is on Soldier's Place in Buffalo. I think this is designed as a private residence. Like, you can't go in there, but you can drive by and look at it. It's a prairie style. The Blue Sky Mausoleum, and this is inside of Forest Lawn Cemetery. It was never built in his lifetime, but it was built in 2004 based on his design. Actually, this happened with a couple of things. So he designed a filling station in 1936, and that was built, the Buffalo Filling Station, I think it's called now. And this is also downtown. It's a Pierce Arrow Museum. There's like a car museum. It's actually a really cool building to go inside too. If you've never been in the Pierce Arrow Museum, a lot of old cars and things like this. The Fontana Boathouse down on the waterfront, really good spot to go birding in the fall when there's strong winds and blowing stuff in off the lake. It's the Buff State NOAA Station is there for the Great Lakes. And there's a boathouse that was designed by Frank Lloyd Wright in 1905, but never realized and built until 2007. It's super cool. Like, if I could have any school or any building designed for a jiu-jitsu academy, it's so awesome. It's like long, and like he incorporated a lot of Asian culture into his art. I think it's really cool how he mixed the two, prairie style with Asian influence, and made these very unique looking buildings. And today that's the West Side Rowing Club. So in the final little bit of this segment here, I'm just going to talk about the road trip that Julie and I did to Falling Water. It's about a 4-hour drive. So you can get down to Pittsburgh pretty quick. If you leave at like 6 in the morning, you're there by 10 a.m. Falling Water is south. It's actually past like Pittsburgh a little ways in the mountainous region. And it was just really cool. They give you a tour there. It's a 1-hour long tour of this house that was designed around a famous waterfall there and famous nature preserve. And the whole thing's a big giant preserve. And the Kaufman family turned this over to a conservancy in Pennsylvania to make sure that not just the house, but all the land and all the artwork on the inside was all protected forever. And there's a bunch of interesting stories that you can get on the tour when you go. It's like an hour long. You walk through the house. There's actual Picassos on the wall in the house because the son growing up, so the family is the Kaufman family that owned like Kaufman's department store that was at the malls all around Buffalo for a long time. This is the same family. And the son, Junior, so this is Edgar Kaufman Jr., he was born in 1910. He never married, and he went away to school and ended up at Taliesin's, which is where Frank Lloyd Wright was headquartered. It was called Taliesin's. And he met Frank Lloyd Wright and commissioned him to come back to his family's property and build a falling water there. Edgar Kaufman Jr. was the son of the Kaufman Empire, right? He did something that was very vulnerable for the time. He lived an openly gay lifestyle within his social circle, despite the conservative atmosphere of the era. This was like very rare, very vulnerable. And he brought his partner around his family like it was modern times. You know, there's pictures of him and his partner at the house. And in fact, when Junior turned the house over to Pennsylvania Conservancy, his partner designed the visitor center, which is a really cool design actually in its own. So they were both like in architecture and art, had heavy influence on the house and the decor. He was openly, unapologetically gay in a time when it was really hard to be that. So I always honor courage no matter what, if you have to stand up for that. And that is really brave. He is the reason that we all get to go visit it today. He's the one that donated it to Pennsylvania. He is the one that turned it into a summer retreat, encouraged Frank Lloyd to come there and actually make it. He's the one who introduced him to all of Pennsylvania because there's other places in the area that Frank Lloyd Wright has done in the area. And it's all really thanks to him. And right now, Falling Water is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. And so, you know, it's been donated and it's amazing. I highly recommend it. It's a short drive away. And also Pittsburgh is super cool. Super friendly city, good food. It's insane driving though. I would recommend finding a hotel and then taking an Uber. I've never been to a place like Pittsburgh here. It's like San Francisco a lot. There's hills that go up and down and sideways. You come to a stoplight and there's 9 different directions to go, and they're like around the mountain, through the mountain, over the bridge. There's bridges everywhere because Pittsburgh was built as a steel place. So they had the steel, they could build the bridges, and they just built them over, around, and through these big, rocky, chunky mountains. And there's some streets that you're standing on that are just like vertical. But it's really cool. It gives this unique feel to it. And everything was, you know, very friendly, very much like Buffalo. Everyone we talked to, every Uber driver, every person we met, we had a really good time. And I would highly recommend checking that out for a little day trip, a little road trip outside of Buffalo here. There's also good birding. Some birds don't reach this far north. We got to see Kentucky warblers, Henslow sparrows on their breeding grounds. It's all right around there, not too far away. There's also Grove City, which is really basically an outlet mall, but it's like an hour north of Pittsburgh or 2 hours north of Pittsburgh, kind of right in between Buffalo and Pittsburgh. So you could break up the trip, do a little shopping, get some discounts, see some birds, and have a great time in Pittsburgh. And that's our first segment of Road Trip. All right, that about does it for the week. This week's business highlight is Q Social. So we talked about this. Q Social is a new mindset platform created by David Coupland. He's from the UK, but decided to launch it here, and it's launching this week. It's an immersive video social app. So instead of just fighting on Facebook, whatever, you have small conversations, like 3-4 people, about the idea that we're going to try to grow. We're going to meet people from around the world that have like-minded things. We could talk about the Buffalo Bills. We could talk about whatever we want, road trips outside of Buffalo. Or we could talk about fixing corruption in our governments and our systems around us. Big ideas happen when we talk together, and this is going to be a really cool platform for that. It's going to be also like an art show. We're going to just take this and slide it right into our events for the week because there's a big event next week that is tied to Q and its success. But before I do that, Newell from Buffalo Rising, he interviewed David, and this is what David said about Q. There's nowhere in the world that I would rather be building and launching Q than in Buffalo. This city is a prime location. It's great for networking and meeting people. We're going to flip the switch on Buffalo to show the world a city that I have come to love and appreciate beyond words. So if you want to learn more, it's www.joinqu, the two letters, .social. joinqu.social. Here's David in his own words talking about his upcoming event.
Hello. For those that don't know, my name is David. I'm the founder of Q. And as I understand it, you are going to be joining me for the Q launch event at the Saturn Club next Tuesday, the 1st of July. With that in mind, I wanted to share a couple of last minute details to give you a better sense of what to prepare for. And the doors are going to open at 5:45. Otherwise, again, I'm just so excited to have you all there. And please, of course, reach out with any other questions in the meantime. But as far as I understand it, I'm going to see you all there at 5:45, 6 o'clock on the 1st of July at the Saturn Club. And I cannot wait. Thank you all. I'll speak to you soon. Big love.
All right. Building off of that, our other events for the week. This is the 4th of July week. So there's not a crazy amount going on except for when you get into 4th of July festivities. At our park, you got George Thorogood and the Destroyers with 38 Special. That's on the 1st. Salem Field on the 3rd has the Buffalo Bisons taking on the Rochester Red Wings at 6 o'clock, followed by, they have like this annual Independence Eve show with fireworks and the Philharmonic. It's really cool. So that will be on the 3rd, the day before the 4th of July. And the fireworks start at 9:15. You can often see them from Pearl Street's patio there. Outer Harbor live at Terminal B. And the 3rd, you have Green Sky Bluegrass. And then on the 5th, you have the Psychedelic Furs. And both of those are in the evening. At Old Fort Niagara, on the 4th through the 6th, you have the historic siege of 1759. It's an action-packed battle reenactment. So this is using Native American councils and acres of period artisans and merchants. And times vary, so just check out their website and see what they got going on. You got the Green Pumpkin Farm on the 4th and the 5th. 12 o'clock both days. There's a carnival, and the Great Pumpkin Farm will have all that festivities happening for the 4th of July. Old Fall Street in USA, also on the 4th through the 6th at 12 o'clock each day. You got weekend festivities with food trucks, live music, entertainment, vendors, and more. And then if you're looking for fireworks, there's all kinds of fireworks. On the 3rd, you got Akron, Aurora, Cheektowaga, Depew, Niagara Falls State Park, Olcott, Springville, Town of Tonawanda. On the 4th proper, you got Boston, Darien Lake, Lancaster, Lewiston, Marilla, Niagara Falls State Park, the city of Tonawanda, Wheatfield. And then on the 5th, you got Clarence and Colden. And some towns are also pairing their fireworks with events beforehand and parades, music, entertainment, food vendors, all that fun stuff. On the 5th, you also, the day after the 4th of July, you got live music at Pearl Street. It's Sunday Rain. This band's really cool. They're very interesting to me. I've never seen them. They're almost like metal, but they can do unplugged too. And I just really never heard a band like them from Buffalo. And I'm very interested in checking them out. All right, to conclude here, we're not going to do a sign-off saying like we usually do because we went over our time. But remember, Buffalo, a rising tide raises all ships. Get your kids into jiu-jitsu class. The Buffalo Open Coffee Club is every Tuesday, 7:30 a.m., Seneca One Tower. And we'll just sign off this week with the idea of thinking big. Whatever your goals are, make them bigger. Make your goals as big as possible and fail on the way to those goals. Or, better yet, succeed. Have a great week, everybody.